Nobody starts at the finish line. You have to start somewhere. In order for you to get to where you're going, to meet that destination, you can't think that you're going to get there instantly. Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Mindful Minute podcast, where we touch on different things, on different areas of life, on how we could go from a nothing place to a something place. And today I have a special guest. I want to let him introduce himself, because what better person there is to introduce yourself than yourself. Please tell the people who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you do.
What's good, man? I appreciate it. Appreciate you for having me, Mr. Vic Freeman, aka Mr. Mindful. Real quick, those that don't know, my name is Jay Smith. I am the founder of 60empower LLC. I'm also the author of Fire, a jumpstart to refueling your inner flame. And what I do is I help disenfranchised youth to overcome life's adversities so they can avoid the school to prison pipeline. I've been a corrections officer for about 18 years now. So I know first line, what those kids are going through, some of the things that they yearn about, their most pressing issues, things that they're afraid to talk about, to their friends or to their family members. And being that I grew up in a poverty-stricken area such as Belgrade, Florida, aka Muck City, man, what can I say? From poverty to 40% unemployment rate. You're talking about gang-related activity. At one point in time, in I think it was like 2003, we had the highest murder rate per capita. So I can understand, where those youth are coming from. And I pretty much had to make a decision, man, growing up in that environment, growing up in that, that predicament where there were a lack of resources. So one thing we have to remember is, kids are human too. And sometimes when their back is against the wall, especially as it relates to a lack of resources, sometimes they tend to act out, man. Like my grandmother always said, man, sometimes when you're not busy or, idle hands worship the devil. So for the most part, when you're not having kids involved in different activities or, having kids utilizing their gifts, some may not even know what their gifts is, and they tend to go down those paths. So it really tugged on my heart to go into the direction that I'm going as far as dealing with disenfranchised or at-risk youth, because I understand where they're coming from, because I came from, the same predicament. So I can really understand and really relate, and that's why I chose to go that route.
Wow, like that's deep, man. Because you're helping kids at a spot where it's going to be very transitional for them in their life. And
Absolutely.
You actually touched on it, because I was going to ask you, like, what made you, want to get into that field? And you talking about being a corrections officer also already, you could kind of see what happens. And so what you're doing is you're trying, as you said, you're trying to stop the cycle of the pipeline.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing, man.
It's crazy, man. Sometimes, a lot of kids, we have these preconceived notions, little Johnny, little Ray, they're bad. But a lot of times, all they need is that 1 ounce of attention, man. That's all they need. And, if they get that, and a lot of times they can pretty much turn their lives around. I know a lot of kids, man, they're very talented, but by the time they get into the correctional system, it's almost too late. Only then do they realize, how talented they are. Some are painters, some are rappers, some are very good when it comes to engineering things, man. You'll be surprised, man. Some are like dope tattoo artists, but a lot of times, they figure it out too late, and that's when they decide to tap into that or those resources or gifts, because once you place in that box and you're not doing able to nothing but just think, then you realize, but by that time, it's already too late. So there are, multiple kids, man, that can be reached prior to going to the correctional system. And a lot of them have, a plethora of gifts, man. They're talented, So what my thing is, I'm trying to just, be that middle guy to prevent that. Because, they, even though they may act tough, even though they may act hard, they need that helping hand. So, that's what I'm overall trying to do, is just be that helping hand.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What was the pivotal point for you that made you say, no, I need to reach the youth before they get into this position where it's like, I can't even help you at this point? So what was that pivotal point for you that made you actually want to start doing that?
Honestly, man, I mean, the overall experience, man, just, seeing myself and some of the youth, listening to their most pressing issues, like, oh, I didn't have a father, man, or my mother, she didn't really care about me, or she used to leave me with my grandmother. And, my grandmother was too old to watch me at night. So I used to roam the streets. And, by me not having a father and roaming the streets, I was looking for somebody or something to fill that void. And, over a period of time, I just got wrapped up and caught up. And, it was too late then. So now you're coming from feeling a void to falling into peer pressure. Once you fall into peer pressure, it's hard to get out of peer pressure. Peer pressure is like the number one drug that, we don't even talk about peer pressure. It's pretty much hard to avoid that once you get into it, because now you got to prove to your friends, prove to girls or whatever the case may be in your overall environment, whether you're that dude or not. So I think just seeing myself in a lot of these kids and helping them and seeing things before they see it, to try to help them transition and say, hey man, listen, I was there, man, but you got to be able to pretty much switch it around, man. Try kind of like role play and help them see where they're headed before they make that bad decision.
Okay, so you're really trying to get them to not just live in the present of what's going on right now, but actually looking into their future, in which the benefit of you, because you're actually saying, no, look at me as somebody from the future who's coming to the past to help you in your present.
Absolutely, because even though, they're young, they're not thinking about their decisions, and not only just about their decisions, but who it ultimately affects. They don't understand that it affects their grandparents, it affects their mom, it affects their dad, it affects their siblings. And once I get them to understand that, how their decisions affect an entire circle of people, then the light bulb cuts on. Because a lot of times when these kids make these decisions, they're being selfish in a sense. They're all already focused on what they want to, focus on. They're not thinking about or being concerned about others. So once I help them, to kind of stand outside of their own way of thinking or their own selfish mindset, then they're like, oh, okay, I see what you mean. Okay. So that pretty much helps.
So, I mean, you already spoke about this. You said, for you see yourself in these kids. So do you feel as though that's how you are becoming most effective, by helping the youth? Because you are actually, in turn, it's like you're talking to your younger self. Do you ever feel that way?
I do, man, because we as adults, sometimes we can, be on a pedestal when we talk to these kids. So if you're coming from that perspective, kids, they don't want to hear that. So that's why it's very important to be transparent. Listen, I know what you're going through. I was in that same situation, but, let me help you out, because this is how I avoided the situation. If you don't do these things or X, Y, Z, this is what you may face. However, if you do, do X, Y, Z, and you're able to get over the hump, even though it may be harder, even though it may not be the most desired or the most popular decision, but at the end of the road, you become more successful. So I try to work on transparency. That also helps to tear that wall down, and also for them not to see me so much as an authority figure, but as somebody that's actually willing to listen and willing to help them.
So everything that I'm hearing right now, you're doing something that a lot of us men, and Black men at that, find it very, very hard to do, which is be vulnerable.
Vulnerable, absolutely.
It is very difficult for us to be vulnerable because we are not in a society where vulnerability, especially for men, is welcome, because that's looked at as a weakness. It's not looked at as a strength. And what you're doing is you're actually flipping the script on that and saying, no, I'm going to be vulnerable with you to show you that in this state that I'm in, I'm actually going to help you because I'm doing this.
Right. And when you're vulnerable, man, you'll be very surprised. You'll be very surprised of the results. You'll be very surprised of what that kid becomes, when the walls come tumbling down. You see less impulsive behavior. You see, more respect, more willing to be open with you when you're transparent. Because like I said, you're not coming from an authority figure or from looking at them from a pedestal level. You're actually getting eye level, meeting them on their level, then just closing the gap as far as meeting their needs and what they want, because every kid is different. You can't approach every situation with this, cookie cutter theme or whatever, or cookie cutter outline. You have to go with every kid different. Every kid's needs are different. You may have one kid, his situation may be, he can't pass math. He having difficulties passing math, and it's peer pressure because he wants to, go to school, go to college, whatever the case may be. But what he's from, being educated is not cool, or being smart in math is not cool. So you have to, approach everything from a different perspective and just close the gap and give that kid what he needs.
Now, you said talking about meeting them at their level. Now, what do you actually mean by meet them at their level? Because, that's different for every person and everybody.
Right.
So what are some ways that you actually try to meet the youth at their level to help them?
Okay, first, communication. Communication is paramount, man, paramount. And just based on some of the things that they may, tell me, that they may ask for, like, for example, I had this one kid, all he wanted was to be heard. He felt like oftentimes when he tried to express himself, when he tried to, talk about, what he wanted to become, or, some of the things that's going on in his household, he felt shut down, shut out, not heard. People called him stupid. So you got to come and meet them at their level to say, hey, man, okay, I'm here to listen. What do you need? Okay, now that I'm listening, picking up all this information and pinpointing the key areas, it helps to reduce stress. It also helps to reduce anxiety, because, when a kid or a child, when they feel like they're not listened to, man, they can explode and do something dangerous. They're not like, us as far as adults. We can pretty much understand the difference between art and life. A lot of youth, they can't do that, so they lash out. So once you learn to listen to them and be open and be transparent and communicate and really, really listen to their actual needs, because a lot of times that's all they want. In most cases, is somebody to hear them out. So when you're able to do that, and you're able to come up with a strategic action plan from getting them from point A to point B, then that's when you can ultimately make a difference in their life. So, and that's where, you start building that relationship and those walls start tumbling down.
Okay. Now, I saw this painting recently where it was an image of an individual and they had eyes coming out of their ears. And I thought that was very powerful, because that, that symbolized, see things with your ears, not necessarily with your own two eyes. And that's what you're actually doing. You're giving these kids an opportunity to not only just be heard, but to be seen from what what they say to you. And so by giving them that time, that's helping them in a whole nother level, because as you said, you're meeting them at their level, or meeting their need. You're giving them a space to actually say, no, this is what I'm looking for. I need somebody to fill in this gap. And so that's what you're doing by actually filling that gap for them when you speak to them, when you talk to them. So now I know that could be very, very exhausting, right? I know it can be very exhausting. You have a family, I'm sure, and you're doing your business and things like that. what is that feeling that you sometimes get, like when you like, all right, I'm going in the house, and like just give me a rundown of what that actually looks like for you sometimes.
Oh man, to be honest, it's very exhausting. I'm glad you said that. It's very exhausting, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. Like for instance, just on last night, man, I fell asleep like whew, my wife had to come wake me up, man. I still had my flip-flops on in the bed. Um, because you want to be the best and you want to make an impact. And when it's your passion, you try to put so much into it. Um, Real quick story. I remember maybe a couple months ago, and I seen one of the kids that was in the program ever since they was maybe like 14, but at this time he maybe 23, 24. And I was doing some walking and he flagged me down. Hey man, hey, where I'm from, I don't really, I don't really do that, get flagged down or stop or whatever the case may be, but something just told me to stop. So when I stopped, the kid, rolled the window down. Hey man, it's me, Smith, what's up? And I'm looking and like, it's such and such. He was like, yeah, what's up, what's up? So, we embraced. He told me that he was doing good. And he told me that, he was thankful for, all the talks, everything that I did for him, as far as listening, as far as understanding, telling me that I was right in some key areas. And he was he was doing good for himself, man. He had his own spot, had a nice car. And it's just that feeling you get, man. That's what keeps you going, from being able to deal with them from teens and they still remember you in their adulthood and they're still able to recognize you from a distance. That's a good feeling, and that's what I do it for. Even though it's tedious, even though it's tiresome, but at the same time, it's still rewarding.
Okay. And I can understand that, and again, you're doing an excellent job with what you're doing. I just want to acknowledge that, man, because if we don't actually see how we can help our youth,
right,
then we're in danger.
Absolutely.
Because we were the youth at one point.
Right.
And so I just love what you're actually doing and how you're actually helping. You're helping them to reclaim their life.
Right.
Because they gave it up. They gave the power away because they weren't seen. And so by now being seen by a brother like yourself, it helps them to reclaim their life. Now, let me ask you this. Is there a, because I know you said the program. So is it a facility where, your company goes to and you speak to the youth? Or is it like something that you set up and, you invite youth to come to? What does that look like?
I'm glad you asked, man. Well, right now, let's take, for example, inside of the correctional facility where I am, I talk to them a lot. And outside of that, I travel to different places. And I recently, my last event that I went to was in Las Vegas. It was an actual an education program, for kids. Very, very rewarding, very, very powerful. But as far as it relates to dealing with them individually, I pretty much try to travel to them, whether it's schools, whether it's local events, whether it's detention facilities, and pretty much try to reach out to them. Pretty much try to help them avoid the school to prison pipeline, because a lot of kids, they're not hearing this message, from people that look like you and I. They're not hearing it. A lot of people that look like you and I have abandoned them, have misled them or led them astray, or they don't even believe in them anymore. So that perspective, what I'm trying to do is just close that gap, man, and be that helping hand or the healing when it comes to them and giving them what they need.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So you're literally going to them outside of where you actually are, at the correctional facility.
You have to, man. I mean, you have to eat, like, when you want to do something, when you're passionate about something, man, it's not held within the confines of a wall. So you have to think outside of the box. You have to travel. You have to do things you don't want to do. You have to take phone calls you may not want to take. You have to listen to things or people you may not want to listen to. But like I said, at the end of the day, even though it's tiresome, even though, you may not, you may feel like, it's 20, you need 25 hours and a 24-hour day. It's still rewarding because, at the end, it pays off tremendously.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this, because I know, you speak to the youth. Now, do you also coach the youth as well?
At this moment, yes, I do coach. I do a little coaching. And that's coming from a different perspective. That's when you talk about the transparency and, going down different formulas, such as the soda formula, which is used in most schools. Now, when it comes to the soda formula pretty much help kids make better decisions. It pretty much breaks down the problem or issue at hand. And SOTA pretty much stands for solution, opportunities, disadvantages, advantages, and solutions. So when you have these different methods and, you pretty much can break it down to the youth, they're looking at, that formula on the board and like, wow, I could have did this. I didn't even know this was so simple. So what I pretty much do is, I talk about their situations. I say, okay, what are the best opportunities? And once they list the opportunities, I go and say, okay, what are some of the disadvantages or advantages of this opportunity? So I'm pretty much guiding them and walking them through an ultimate decision or solution that they can make on their own.
Oh, wow. Now that's nice. Now, is this coaching one-on-one or is it a group setting?
Mostly group setting.
Okay. Now, is this in person or do you do it virtually as well?
It varies, man. It varies with everything going on right now. Some businesses are different. Some you have mass, some prefer virtual, but it varies. But I'm all for it, man. Either or. I'm all for it, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. I'm all for it. My ultimate job is to impact and to affect you.
All right. So as far as your business, what is the vision that you have for the business in the next, say, 5 years? What does that look like for you?
You hit me with a lot of good questions, man. My vision, honestly, I want to impact over 1 million youth. Because you have to think about the overall generational, breaking that generational curse. If I can touch one, I can touch 10. If I can touch 10, I can touch 20, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. And then, it becomes the domino effect. This person teach this person teach this person. And what I tell them is, once you have learned, now it's your job to teach. You just can't learn and keep that knowledge to yourself. It's your job to pass it on. So once they pass it on, and once the other person passes it on, we're creating that domino effect. So my job right now, or my vision right now, is trying to impact at least 1 million disenfranchised youth.
Wow. Now, and it's crazy because I like that mindset that you have about it, because by you helping one, that one could actually in turn help 5. So right. You didn't actually just help one person, you just helped 6 people. And so it actually would make your job a lot easier. The more effective that you are by helping one individual, who's touching so many other different people's lives, you are now that much closer to reaching your goals. I like that. Listen, Dave, listen, again, I love what you're doing, man. I love what you're doing. Look, Jay, I just want to say thank you again. What is something that you would like to leave with anybody that may have, maybe not necessarily a youth in their family, but they may know a youth, or they have a friend of a friend that is going through? What is something that you would like to leave them so they can actually try to reach that youth?
I would say, from my training and experience, I would say be transparent. Every situation is different. You have some situations that are more sensitive than others. You have some situations where all the kid knows is what they see or what they're surrounded around. So I would treat every case different. And, it's not going to be easy. You have to be in it for the long haul because it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. There has been situations where, parents may feel like, or educators may feel like they have lost kids. It's not that they have lost the child per se, but we have to create that bridge in order for them to get back. Not in order just for them to get back, but we also have to meet them halfway. And once we meet them halfway and communicate and become transparent, man, it's a game changer. Then we can tear those walls down and pretty much, as a whole, prevent that school to prison pipeline. But yeah, I would say communicate, be transparent, and meet them at their level.
All right, so let's just say, for example, myself, I'm looking for some tips on like how I could say talk to a little cousin of mine who I see is kind of going down the wrong path, but I don't necessarily know what I need to say to him. What would you tell me to actually say to him?
Well, depending on the situation, I would tell you to reverse the roles because some kids, a lot of times you have to understand, they get so caught up in their mindset or their perspective or way of doing things, they may not be consciously aware of what they're doing. So when you reverse it, when you switch it, say, hey man, listen, you know what? Let's do something right quick. We're gonna role play, right? I'm gonna be you, you're gonna be me. And I'm gonna show you, because they may not know. I'm gonna show you, how you act and some of the things that you may face if you keep, with this behavior. And some may be down for it, some may not be down for it. Every situation is different. But for the most part, when you do that, the child pretty much picks up. Now, to close that and to make them understand better, that's when we get into the communication part as far as, going down those steps as far as the soda method. Because like I say, sometimes they're just doing things based off instinct and based off habit. So they may not be aware, but just reversing that and having them see themselves and having them mirror their behavior can be effective as well.
Oh, I love that idea. Thank you. Definitely appreciate it. So,
No
all right. I want to say thank you for joining me.
No problem,
talking about this. This is a topic that I feel as though that many are not talking about.
Right.
And it is very necessary. And again, I just want to say I appreciate all the work that you are doing.
No problem. I appreciate you, man.
Listen, we got to do this, right? We got to do it.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now it's time for Ask Mr. Mindful Minute. So, Jay, what is your question for Mr. Mindful Minute himself?
Let me see, man. Let me go into my bag of tricks right quick. Let me do this. Okay. What would you tell someone that may not know their purpose right now? Like, they're banging their head on the wall. They're constantly trying to figure it out. What would you tell a person that's coming to you for advice who's trying to figure out their purpose in life?
All right. That's a really good question. I actually get that question quite often. Okay. And when I coach my clients, some of the first things that I talk about is finding out your essence. Like find your essence of who you are. Figure out what actually flows to you and then through you. See, a lot of times we are doing things just because, but we're not really putting any thought into the essence of it. Like, do I really like this because I like it, or do I like this because I've been conditioned to think that this is something that I should like?
Like that.
And so when we actually look at it from that standpoint, we have to study the one book that most people tend to not study, which is the book of self. Because we'll study about, say, something in school. We know our favorite songs. We know our favorite movies. Depending on a person's belief system, your favorite scriptures and things like that, which all of that is great.
Right.
But have you studied you? But do you know how you think? And, in my research, I've just noticed that a lot of times we do a lot of these different things because we don't want to actually do the hard work of finding out ourselves, because the one person that we know we cannot get away from is us.
Absolutely. There you go.
So we won't study ourselves enough in depthly so we can actually say, no, this is my passion and this is my purpose and this is what I should be doing with my life. And it's not saying that what you're doing with your life, you can't do something else. You can be a school bus driver and still also be somebody who's helping people. You can work at a business. You doing what your purpose is. It does not necessarily mean you doing that for a living. And a lot of times we tend to think that, oh, well, this is my purpose. I need to be doing this for a living. I need to be making money off. If you can make money off of it, great. But if you cannot make money off of it, will you still do it? Is it something that you do just without thinking about it? Nobody had to teach you. Some people, they just learn how to be articulated with speaking. Nobody taught them that.
Right.
Some people are just amazing at dancing and they come up with dance. Nobody showed them that, but they studied something within themselves. They said, no, I noticed that every single time that I listen to music, my body start to move a certain way. So some of the things that we could actually do if we want to start looking for our purpose and finding our purpose, well, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to look in the mirror and have a conversation with ourselves.
Okay.
So when I have my clients actually do this, I'll say, hey, go look in the mirror and I want you to apologize to yourself. And I promise you, this is one of the hardest things that my clients have a time doing, because we know how to address other people, but we don't know how to address ourselves. That is why it is very difficult for us to find our purpose, because we don't know how to address ourselves with the most difficult conversations, because we may have let ourselves down in some type of way. We're working so hard to not let somebody else down, but we didn't work that hard to make sure that we didn't let ourselves down. So that is something that we need to do when we're trying to find our purpose.
That's dope, man. One more question before I let you go, because I know, man, you a man of much knowledge.
That's why I was Mr. Mindful Minute, right?
So what would you say? How can I say this? How did you become passionate about being a coach?
Wow, listen, the way I became passionate about this is I'm already a person that cares about people, right? Like, I'm really big on DISC assessments, right? That's one way that we find out ourselves. And so I'm a big person who believes in what Eric Thomas is doing.
Okay.
So I was listening to Eric Thomas as an adult. I didn't even know who Eric Thomas was when I was younger. And so after listening to some of his stuff, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. And I realized that, man, some of the stuff that he talks about, I already do. I've already been doing. I've already been helping people. I really care about people's experience with me or their experience in life. So how can I have a conversation with you that is going to empower you, motivate you, and inspire you all at the same time? A lot of times when people have a conversation with me, they say, man, I walk away from the conversation believing in myself a way that I never thought that I could. And I said, man, I figured out that I know how to motivate myself. I don't need something else to do it.
Right.
Everybody can't do that. So why don't I actually be what I was looking for? I remember when I was going through depression. I remember when I was having anxiety and things like that. And I was just like, man, I wish I had somebody to go to or to talk to. And so now with me doing that and saying that I know that this was a passion for me, this actually became an opportunity for me to put a mirror up.
Okay.
Every single person that I feel as though that I impact or I talk or I touch in some type of way, I didn't actually touch them. I touched myself. So that's how I knew it became a passion for me, because I said, no, I really want to be being a reflection of a mirror of how I'm actually speaking to myself. And I'm just projecting how I actually feel about myself. So when I make my videos and when I'm coaching people, these are all things that I'm actually saying to myself. The world is just hearing it.
I like that, man. That's dope. I gotta steal that, man. I gotta steal that one. I like that.
So yep, that's what it was for me. That's definitely what it was for
Wow.
me.
I appreciate that, man. That's some profound stuff.
Thank you. So
Wow.
again, I just want to thank you for this opportunity for coming on here, talking to the people. How can people connect with you, subscribe to your channels and things like that, even support the things that you're doing? How can people do that?
Well, right now, on Facebook, I am under J Smith. That's Jay Smith. On Instagram, you can follow me at J Smith Empowers. That's at J Smith Empowers. And if you want a copy of the book, Fire, A Jumpstart to Refueling Your Inner Flame. And FIRE is actually an acronym for Failure is Rarely External. So FIRE, A Jumpstart to Refueling Your Inner Flame. You can get a copy of that on Amazon.com.
Appreciate you, good brother. I appreciate you. So
Appreciate you, sir.
Again, remember, greatness is a mindset. You have a mindset of greatness. If your greatness was circumstantial, then when circumstances were not great, then you would not be great either. So remember, I'm Mr. Mindful Minute telling you to go be great.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, boss.
You're in control of how you feel. You're in control. You are the determining factor of your feelings. No one else can control how you feel. Remember, you're in control of how you feel. So control your feelings.